Your paycheck arrives before the day has really started. For a moment, the number feels comforting. It looks bigger than yesterday felt. Then your mind begins to divide it. Rent comes first, then insurance, then the phone bill, the power bill, the minimum payment, groceries, gas, and the subscriptions that have become so normal, you barely notice them anymore. Nothing dramatic happens. No one stands in front of you and takes the money away. It simply moves into places that were waiting for it before it ever arrived. By the time the morning is fully moving, the paycheck is no longer a paycheck. It is a transfer station. Money came into your life, passed through the system around you, and left only a smaller piece behind. That is the part most people feel before they can explain it. The problem is not always that money never arrives. Sometimes the problem is that it never stays long enough to become control. Premise: the first real threshold. This is why the first $100,000 changes everything. Not because it makes you rich. Not because it means you can quit your job. Not because it turns you into the version of success people sell in thumbnails and short videos. The first $100,000 matters because it is the first point where money begins to behave less like a balance and more like a structure. Below that threshold, money is mostly defensive. It covers the next bill. It repairs the last damage. It catches the next problem just long enough for another one to appear. But above that threshold, something different begins to form. A small machine. A base. A financial structure with enough weight to stand between you and the next demand. This is not a motivational story. It is a structural one. There are 8 levels to it. No margin. The reset pattern. The income illusion. The door into ownership. Automation as defense. Silent accumulation. Privacy. And finally, the first machine with real mass behind it. Level 1. No margin. At the first level, every dollar already belongs somewhere else. You may see the money in your account, but it does not feel fully available. The due dates have already spoken for it. The fixed costs have already shaped the month. Your checking account is not a place where freedom happens. It is a dashboard showing how little room remains. This is why normal decisions can feel heavier than they should. A grocery trip becomes a calculation. A tank of gas becomes a timing problem. A small invitation from a friend becomes a question you have to measure against the rest of the week. You can be careful here. You can be smart here. You can work hard, compare prices, delay purchases, track expenses, and still feel like the month keeps closing in. Because the problem is not only behavior. The problem is distance. There is not enough distance between what comes in and what must go out. When that distance is too small, every decision gets compressed. You are not choosing from freedom, you are choosing from pressure. And pressure has a way of making even ordinary life feel unstable. At this level, money does not create options. It mostly shows you how many options have already disappeared. Level 2. The reset pattern. Then comes the second level, the reset. You finally create a little space. Not enough to feel safe, but enough to feel like maybe the direction is changing. Then, life does what life does. A dental bill you delayed becomes harder to ignore. A deductible is higher than you expected. An appliance stops working at the wrong time. A family member needs help, and the decision is not only financial. A reimbursement takes longer than promised. A deposit is due before the old one returns. None of these moments are rare. That is what makes them so powerful. They do not feel like disasters from the outside. They look ordinary. But when there is no buffer, ordinary life becomes a command. Start again. Rebuild the same small amount. Protect the same narrow space. Hope next month finally holds. This is where people start misreading their own lives. They think the number is not growing because they are failing. But often, the number is not growing because the structure underneath it is too thin. A thin structure cannot absorb impact. It only passes the impact directly into your life. And after enough resets, a colder question begins to appear. Why does earning more still not create more control? Level 3, the income illusion. At the third level, you begin to understand that income matters, but income alone is not control. Income matters. It matters deeply. But income is not the same thing as structure. A raise can arrive and vanish into the same structure that existed before it. A small bonus can become delayed repairs, overdue purchases, and 1 month where breathing feels slightly easier. A tax refund can feel like progress for a few days, then dissolve into pressure that had been waiting quietly in the background. That is the illusion. You think new money will automatically change your position, but if the system receiving that money has not changed, the money simply enters the old pattern. And the old pattern knows exactly what to do with it. It does not always disappear through luxury. Sometimes it disappears through exhaustion. A faster meal because you are tired. A small convenience because the week was long. A better plan, a higher premium, a recurring charge that feels harmless because now you can technically afford it. A weekend decision that is not reckless, just human. This is why income alone is unstable. Money becomes whatever system receives it. If it enters consumption, it becomes consumption. If it enters pressure, it becomes temporary relief. If it enters ownership, it begins to become capital. That is the first real shift. Not just making more, redirecting what you make before the old structure absorbs it. Level 4, the asset door. At the fourth level, you begin to notice a door most people walk past for years. On one side is income. On the other side is ownership. Income arrives because your labor was needed. Your time, your attention, your energy, your presence. You show up and money comes in. But when the work stops, the income is exposed. Ownership works differently. Ownership is what remains after the hour is gone. It is the part of your labor that has been converted into something that can stay in place when you are no longer standing there. This is not about one stock. It is not about one account, one tactic, or one perfect move. It is about a structural difference. Money can pass through you, or money can be assigned to something that survives longer than the next bill. At this level, the question changes. You stop asking only, how much did I make? You begin asking, where did the money go after I made it? That question matters because wealth is not built only by increasing what enters your life. It is built by changing the destination of what enters. Some of it must become reserves. Some of it must become assets. Some of it must become a system that still exists after the workday ends. The rule is simple, but most people are trained to earn. Very few are trained to redirect. Level 5, the automation defense. At the 5th level, you realize that understanding the rule is not enough, because the modern financial environment is built to catch money before intention can protect it. Everything is smooth now. One tap, one saved card, one renewal, one small convenience at the exact moment friction would have helped you stop. That is why automation matters, not because it is convenient, because it is defensive. Automation moves money before the weakest version of you gets involved, before the long day, before the app opens, before the invitation arrives, before the purchase explains itself as reasonable, before lifestyle finds a way to turn extra income into normal spending. You are not trying to become perfectly disciplined every hour. That is too fragile. The world is too good at finding the moment when discipline is expensive. So you build a rule. The money moves first. Before you negotiate with yourself. Before your environment offers a better use for it. Before the old structure can absorb it. At first, this does not feel powerful. It feels mechanical. But that is exactly why it works. A machine does not need to be inspired. It only needs to keep running. And over time, the decision you used to remake every month becomes a decision you made once. Level 6, the silent accumulation phase. The 6th level is where many people stop. Not because the system is broken, because it works too quietly. The number grows, but your life does not suddenly look transformed. You still go to work. You still check prices. You still think before spending. You still live in the same place, drive the same car, wear the same clothes, and answer the same emails. From the outside, nothing impressive has happened. And that is difficult, because early capital does not reward the ego. It does not announce itself. It does not create status. It does not make people treat you differently. It grows quietly in the background, too slowly to feel exciting and too small to feel powerful. This is the real emotional test. You have built a machine, but the machine is still light. It cannot carry your life yet. It cannot replace your income. It cannot remove fear. It can only continue. And continuing without visible reward is harder than starting. Starting gives you energy. Continuing requires structure. At this level, you begin to understand something important. Capital is often invisible before it becomes powerful. And invisibility does not mean nothing is happening. It means the system is learning how to hold weight. But if you keep building long enough, another pressure appears. Not from bills, not from emergencies, from people. Level 7, the private number. At the 7th level, the number becomes something you protect. Not because you are ashamed of it, because the structure is still young. It is not strong enough yet to survive every expectation other people might place on it. This is where privacy becomes financial architecture. You may keep living in the same place longer than people expect. You may delay the car, the trip, the furniture, the upgraded version of life everyone assumes you should want. You may decline expensive plans without explaining the whole system you are building. And people will read that in different ways. Some will think you are afraid. Some will think you are cheap. Some will think you lack ambition, because they only recognize progress when it becomes visible. but visible progress is often the most expensive kind. The social world has a way of giving your money a purpose before you have finished giving it a structure. That is why privacy matters. Not secrecy. Privacy. Secrecy hides because it fears being seen. Privacy protects because it understands what is still being built. Early capital must be defended before it can defend you. Level 8, the $100,000 machine. Then comes the 8th level, the first $100,000. And the strange part is that it does not feel like the fantasy people sell around it. It does not make you free. It does not replace your income. It does not erase risk. It does not remove you from work, uncertainty, responsibility, or the ordinary pressure of life. You still have bills. You still have limits. You still have decisions to make. But the mechanics are different now. The system has weight. A contribution no longer lands on nothing. It lands on a base. A return no longer moves against a number too small to feel real. It has more surface area to work against. An emergency no longer has the same power to destroy the entire direction. It can slow you down. It can force adjustment. But it does not automatically send you back to the beginning. That is the difference. The first $100,000 is not powerful because it makes life effortless. It is powerful because it changes the relationship between pressure and response. Before, pressure arrived and your life had to bend around it. Now, there is something between you and the impact. Not enough to make you untouchable, enough to make you less exposed. And that is the first sign that the machine is no longer just an idea. It has mass now. It can carry some weight. Final inversion. The threshold was never the money, but the final truth is colder than the number. The threshold was never really $100,000. That was only the visible mark. The real threshold was the system that made the number possible. The redirected income. The automated rule. The refusal to let every raise become a softer version of the same trap. The ownership. The restraint. The privacy. The repeated choice to build something before it could impress anyone. The money did not create discipline from nothing. The structure created conditions where discipline could survive. That is what many people misunderstand. They look at the number and think the number changed the person. But usually the person changed the structure first. Then the number became evidence. Philosophical closing. Let the system carry weight. The next stage is quieter. It is not about looking rich. It is not about proving you were right. It is not about becoming loud enough for people to understand the years they never saw. It is about adding weight to the system. Again and again. Calmly, the machine is still not complete. But it is no longer only working against you. For the first time, a small part of it is carrying weight for you. And once you feel that, the goal is no longer to escape overnight. The goal is to keep giving the machine more to carry.